Okay, so we're going to talk about grief and the grieving process. Oftentimes, when we think about grief, it's grieving the death of a loved one or a pet or somebody very important to you. And that's what we're going to talk about now, is grieving your past life that obviously is very important to you, but it's not the death of it. It's the acceptance and the allowance of all the things that you've been through, all the challenges and the ups and downs, all the learning experiences you've had, all the wisdom and education that you've gleaned throughout the years. They have all come to bring you to this place right now. So for that, we're going to honor that, because you're a beautiful human being going through this experience right now. And we are just going to, it just is a process, the grieving process, to move from your previous other life phases and the longest one you just had into this new phase of life. So using the grieving process can help you process it. And just know that a process takes time. So you want to be able to allow yourself the time to take the time to go through this grieving process, which is an emotional process. So you need to allow yourself to accept your emotions that you're feeling and really work through them and feel them, so that you can then thank them and tell them that they no longer serve you anymore, and let them go. And as far as when you're grieving, you want to stay in a neutral space for you, without the shaming yourself or judging yourself from any of your previous actions, or from the emotions that you're feeling that are brought up at this time. So no judgment here, okay? We're just going to allow ourselves to feel them, process them, and let them go. So the first stage of grief is denial. And just as I told you in the first video, like when I learned, was going through my sex education class, man, I was in denial for sure. I don't know if I fully emotionally processed it, but I didn't want to be there. I was denying that this was going to happen to me. There's no way I was ever going to have sex or grow up. I didn't want to, but it happened. I made it through, and you will too. So, up until now, like, you've been through the several phases of life, your childhood, your preteens, your teens, and your young adult life. And as we already talked about, you've learned so many lessons, and, you've had some trying times. If you raised a family or built a career, there have been trying times, but, now at this stage of your life, if you have children, they're probably can take care of themselves now for the most part, or they're off to college, and things are and your job is, you know what you're doing, you're at a good space there. So everything's smooth and steady as it goes, until bam, here comes menopause and throws everything in an uproar. So, it's a big change, and it's something that you have to realize, that menopause is a natural process that every woman goes through in their life. I made it through, and if I can do it, you can do it. I and about 1 billion other women. It's a natural process that happens, and it can throw you for a loop. And you just want to remember too, that all those challenges that you've had in your previous life up until now, you've made it through those too. You've made it through your horrific excruciating period cramps. You've made it through those heavy, messy flows of your period. You've made it through your first heartbreak. You've made it through, perhaps if you've had a child, you've made it through that excruciating pain of labor and childbirth. And if you haven't had a child, I know that you have labored through something that was very difficult. Getting a college degree, attaining that job that you work so hard for, getting the promotion, the raises, whatever it is, you've worked and toiled through things and you've made it through to the other side. So this is how menopause is too. It may not be fun while it's happening, but you will get through it. And you can continue to be in denial for as long as serves you. But the great thing about being a human is that we always have a choice. So we have a choice. We can choose to stay in denial, keep feeling the emotions that we're feeling about releasing our resistance to this change. And then we can make a choice that when it's time to move on, just allow yourself to be able to feel all the emotions and the feelings that you're going through and be able to work through them and accept them and thank them and tell them that they're no longer needed anymore and that you're letting them go. So the second stage of grief is anger. And I imagine we've probably all felt a little anger. Not necessarily throughout your whole life, but life happens and there are things that happen in life that can make you angry. And perhaps you are angry about this. It's like, this did not come at the right time. You know, there's all kinds of other stresses going on in your life, and now you've got menopause. So you're rightly so. You can be angry. That's your choice. That's what you're feeling. You know, you've got to allow yourself to feel the emotions that are causing this anger. You know, maybe you're feeling out of control. You have no control over what's going on right now. And it's really frustrating. But definitely give yourself time to feel it and process it and let it go. So you can move on to the next stage of grief, which is bargaining. So we can come up with all kinds of ways to try to bargain our way out of the circumstance that we're in right now. And maybe it can help you in the short term in your mind, maybe bargaining with your higher power saying, oh, if you make this go through fast for me, I promise I'll do this, or whatever it is that you feel like your bargaining chip is. But hey, maybe taking this program is your bargaining chip. Maybe part of taking care of yourself, investing in this program and learning and putting into action the suggestions we've talked about so far can help make things a lot easier through your menopausal symptoms. So hopefully that's the case, but if you're in that bargaining stage or process, just remember, let yourself feel it and you're going to move on. But also remember that, well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm just going to let you know that when you're going through the grieving process, you will be having the emotions of there's some guilt involved or some blame involved, maybe some regret. And like I said, shame or judgment. So you got to really allow yourself to be conscious and mindful of exactly what those emotions are that you're feeling, so you can feel them and accept them and process them and thank them for being there, but let them go. Tell them they no longer serve you now, and you're going to let them go. And then the fourth stage of grief is depression. So I think this is a big one. The good thing about the depression stage through the grieving process is that it's a situational depression. However, if you do have depression or you have had it throughout your life, and maybe you're being treated for it, either seeing a coach or a therapist or on an antidepressant and being followed by a doctor. But if these depression modes or moments are made much worse from going through the menopause symptoms, please make sure that you do seek professional guidance from the persons that you're seeing for this. Okay. Now, depression, if you do have it, and rightly so, we all have a little bit of depression, I think. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself maybe, but certain situations in life, you can become depressed about, a broken heart, that makes you depressed. A new change in life, like menopause, that can make you depressed. So just really, you want to allow yourself to feel it. And you want to just make sure, though, that you don't allow yourself to stay stuck. Granted, it's a process and processes take time. But be mindful and conscious of the fact that, especially if you have had depression before, that it can become maybe kind of a comfort zone or a comfortable spot that you're in right now. But you just don't want to stay there too long, because you have a full life to start living. And one of the things that we talked about in the first module, as far as, stress relief or relief of some of the symptoms, was journaling. And if you're feeling this depression or any of these emotions, the anger, the denial, the bargaining, any of the emotions that are coming up, journaling is really good to do. You can write about what that emotion or thought, feeling that you're having. And then you really want to tune in to your body where you're feeling that emotion. Oftentimes we feel it in the back of our shoulder blades or our neck and our shoulders, or sometimes you can feel it in your chest, maybe a heaviness or maybe an increased heart rate, maybe in your stomach as kind of a queasy feeling or some kind of GI upset, wherever you're feeling it. Or it could be a certain pain, maybe down in your lower back or something. Wherever it is, just go inward and be mindful of and conscious about where that is and what it's trying to tell you. During changes in our lives, sometimes, especially going through this grieving process, it might just be on the surface. Yeah, I'm really depressed. I'm going through menopause right now, and it's not a good time in my life. But it could be triggered. The emotions that you're feeling could be triggered by other areas in your life at a very early age that maybe you haven't processed these feelings or emotions. And it could come up in this with the journaling and stuff, which is an awesome process to work through, especially at this time of your life. Because you'll be able to process that and feel it and let it go. So it will open you up to having more openness and awareness to becoming the true full person that you are meant to be at this time in your life. And a really important thing to remember is that what you're feeling is a thought or an emotion, but you, as the soul being living in your physical body are much more powerful than, I don't want to say just that thought or feeling, because those can be very powerful too. But you have so much more power than that thought or feeling does. So this is where mindfulness comes into play. Thinking, feeling, and working through everything, knowing that it's a process. Once you make that step, it and release that, feel it and release it, you're allowing yourself to move on and move forward. So again, you have a choice. Do you want to allow these emotions to become embedded and just start festering in your muscles, in your stomach, in your heart? Because if they stay there long enough and you don't address them, they can form a disease in your body. Or you can choose to allow them and acknowledge them, really feel them, and then let them go so you can progress. So that, I know, is pretty deep, but it is a practice, this grieving process. It's actually a daily practice, because did you know we have 65 to 70,000 thoughts per day? I don't know how they come up with that, but they did a test. And then 80% of those thoughts happen to be negative thoughts. Those are because of we form them throughout our life, from our parents, our families, our school, our teachers, our people who have influenced us, the society, the media. We get so many bombarding thoughts in our heads, and they're mostly negative. So you can use your mindfulness, make your choices to really do your best to try to think positively, positive thoughts. And this is a daily practice, like I said. Going through this transition of menopause is a mindset practice, really. And it's an important one, because this is an important time of our lives right now. We are transitioning into the next and last phase of our lives. So it's probably going to be one of the longer phases of our life. So we want to make it a good one. And we're going to address several ways to do that in our upcoming videos. But this next one coming up in this week is, we're going to go through the forgiveness process. Lots of processes this week, because that will really help through the grieving process and our transformation. So I will see you on the next video.